The sun spilled over the crowded city of Caraner like liquid gold, but for Arvin Reyes, it felt more like a spotlight exposing every crack in his life. He stood on the pedestrian bridge overlooking the river, chest tight, stomach twisted, and eyes blurred from sleepless nights. Everything he loved, everything he had worked for, had slipped through his fingers like water. His wife had left after years of financial struggle, his mother's medical bills towered over him like mountains made of cold, unforgiving stone, and his dreams of becoming an engineer had long drowned under the weight of survival. But none of this compared to the moment that changed everything when a stranger in a charcoal gray suit stepped out of a black car in front of him, extended a tablet, and said the most impossible sentence Arvin had ever heard: "I'll pay you $10 billion if you can solve this, in 60 seconds. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected miracles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Hope. It truly helps keep these stories alive." Arvin stared at the man, his heartbeat echoing in his ears like a distant drum. $10 billion? He couldn't even imagine $1 million. His first instinct was that this was a cruel joke, some internet prank meant to humiliate him when he was already at rock bottom. But the stranger's expression didn't hold even a trace of mockery. His eyes were steady, almost sorrowful, as though he already knew Arvin's pain. The tablet screen displayed a diagram, complex patterns of geometric shapes, coded symbols, and an equation that looked like it belonged inside the brain of a supercomputer rather than a human mind. Arvin recognized elements of structural integrity calculations, resonance frequency modeling, and stress distribution matrices. Whoever had built this puzzle wasn't testing luck, they were testing knowledge. Arvin's throat tightened. He hadn't touched complex equations in years. His textbooks were long sold to pay rent, and his brilliance, once his proudest possession, had dimmed under constant exhaustion. But as he looked at the puzzle, something stirred inside him. A flicker of the boy he once was. A boy who had stayed up at night solving challenges for fun. A boy who saw numbers not as burdens, but as music. And for the first time in years, the world didn't feel entirely hopeless. Still, he forced himself to ask, voice trembling, why anyone would pay such a price. The stranger smiled faintly and introduced himself as Kellen Voris, an eccentric billionaire and creator of worldwide intellectual challenges. He explained that this was his final test, the ultimate search for someone capable of solving what no genius, no AI, no corporation had solved. He claimed he didn't need the answer for profit, but for closure. "My daughter built this puzzle before she passed," Kellen said quietly. "She asked me to find someone worthy enough to understand it. Someone who would feel it, not just compute it." Those words lodged themselves deep in Arvin's chest like a burning coal. A daughter. A final wish. A father's fragile hope. Suddenly the 10 billion wasn't just a reward, it was a responsibility. Kellen raised the small metallic timer. "If you start, the 60 seconds begin. Once the countdown runs, there's no stopping it." Arvin wiped his palms on his worn jeans. 60 seconds. A life-changing chance wrapped inside a trap of impossible pressure. If he failed, he would walk away the same broken man with the same crushing life. If he succeeded, everything could change. His mother could be saved. His dreams resurrected. His dignity restored. He nodded. The timer clicked. And 60 seconds began. Arvin's eyes darted across the shapes. The formula wasn't purely mathematical, there were emotional variables embedded within the sequence, almost poetic representations of pressure, loss, and resilience. Kellen's daughter hadn't designed a logical puzzle. She had designed a reflection of life itself, moments of collapse, recovery, and transformation. He felt, rather than calculated, the intention behind each symbol. 20 seconds gone. His fingers glided across the screen, connecting shapes not by standard engineering principles but by intuition, paths that symbolized endurance, curves that signified forgiveness, nodes that illustrated grief. 36 seconds gone. He remembered his mother's trembling hands holding his diploma. 42 seconds. He remembered his wife crying as she packed her last suitcase. 48 seconds. He remembered the child he once was, dreaming of becoming a man who built bridges, not just over rivers, but over people's despair. 53 seconds. The final step snapped into his mind not as an equation, but as a realization. The puzzle wasn't about perfection. It was about understanding that broken structures could still stand if supported correctly. He input the final transformation. The screen flashed. And the timer hit 59.2 seconds. For a moment, the world froze. Kellen exhaled so deeply it was almost a sob. Arvin stood trembling, as though lightning had passed through him. The puzzle displayed a gentle message written by Kellen's daughter: "If you solve this, it's because you carry pain, and still choose to rise. My father should reward you not for brilliance, but for hope." Tears pooled in Kellen's eyes. He whispered, "Thank you. You honored her." But Arvin shook his head, overwhelmed. "I didn't do this alone," he said softly. "Life showed me every piece." Kellen didn't hesitate. He promised the transfer of $10 billion would begin immediately. Arvin's knees nearly buckled. A flood of emotions crashed over him, relief so sharp it almost hurt, joy tangled with disbelief, and gratitude so immense it pressed against his ribs. He thought of his mother's hospital bed, the debt strangling him, the dream he had buried so deeply he thought it would suffocate. Now, all of it could change. The story didn't end on that bridge. It began there. Arvin used the money differently than most could imagine. While Kellen wanted no publicity, word eventually leaked, as miracles often do. But Arvin didn't buy mansions or supercars. He rebuilt engineering institutes, offering free enrollment to underprivileged students. He created a medical fund for families drowning in impossible bills. He restored his mother's health with the best care available. And perhaps most importantly, he rebuilt his sense of worth. His wife, Mira, eventually reached out not because of the money, but because she heard he had become the person she always believed he could be. Their reunion wasn't instant or easy, broken bonds rarely mend overnight. But they met by the river where their future once seemed hopeless, and for the first time, they spoke without resentment. She cried as she apologized for leaving, and he cried because he understood why she had. Pain had shaped them both, but the past didn't have to define their future. Arvin later met Kellen again, this time at a community center funded by Arvin's charitable foundation. Kellen smiled at the sight of children building small wooden bridges and solving beginner puzzles with wonder-filled eyes. "My daughter would have loved this," he whispered. Arvin placed a hand on his shoulder. "She built a doorway to a new world. I'm just walking through it." But despite all the triumph, Arvin's journey wasn't flawless. There were days he woke unsure of himself, burdened by the magnitude of responsibility. When people looked at him with awe, he sometimes felt like an imposter. $10 billion didn't erase years of hardship, it simply rewrote the next chapters. And he worked tirelessly to earn the blessings he had been given. The moment that solidified his transformation came one quiet afternoon. Arvin walked into a classroom where a young boy named Tahir sat alone, tears streaking down his dusty cheeks. When Arvin asked what was wrong, the boy whispered, "I'm too dumb to learn this. I should just stop trying." Arvin's heart jolted. He knelt, placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder, and said the words he wished someone had said to him when he reached the brink of surrender: "You're not dumb. You just haven't met the problem that shows you who you really are. I once solved something in 60 seconds, but it took a lifetime to understand it. Don't give up. Your moment will come." The boy wiped his tears and nodded. And in that small act, Arvin finally realized what the greatest gift had been: not the money, not the fame, not the restored life. It was the ability to pass hope forward. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Hope. Your engagement helps these messages reach someone who may need them today.